Mineral salt was still falling from his hand when the ground stopped accepting the body. At 4:11 a.m., on the high plateau between Huancar and the dry borderline, Efrain Quispe was doing what he had done every dawn for 27 years. Open the salt sack and spread it over the flat stone where the herd came to lift before the climb. The upper wind rolled down from the southern slope, sharp and dry. The animals were already approaching in a slow arc, heads lowered, vapor leaving their nostrils in the thin, cold air. Efrain tilted the sack and shook it with his right hand, a gesture repeated thousands of times. The salt began to fall. The gesture did not finish. The outpost radio picked up the sound of the sack striking stone once, and then a short, hard scrape, like a boot against basalt. Nothing else. No footsteps, no fall, no struggle. Just the abrupt end of motion. When the patrol climbed up 28 minutes later, they found the salt scattered across the ground, the sack open, and his footprints leading up to a smooth black stone that had not been there the day before. The prints were deep, regular, advancing straight to the slick surface. The last footprint pressed fully into the thin snow. The foot had been there. The rest had not. There was no next step. No turn back. No drag mark. Fine grains of salt were still sliding from the tilted sack, as if the hand holding it had been removed from the world mid-gesture. The herd formed a rigid semicircle 40 feet away, all staring at the same point. None of the animals touched the salt. None stepped forward. Efrain's staff stood upright beside the stone, balanced without support. A strand of freshly marked wool clung to the polished surface, trembling without wind. The tracker on his belt transmitted a fixed coordinate. The place held an absent man exactly where everything insisted he still was. Subscribe now, because what was recorded in this valley does not tolerate inattentive witnesses. Hit like before ordinary logic begins to buckle under the weight of what you're about to hear. And tell me in the comments which city you're watching from, while there is still continuous ground beneath those who walk. The disappearance of Efrain Quispe did not begin with a search, a rumor, or a theory. It began with routine interrupted at high altitude, at the exact point where the land stops forgiving human error. Efrain was 42 years old and had been herding along the same Andean stretch since adolescence, between Huancar and the mineral line of the dry border. His schedule never changed. Climb before full light, inspect the herd, mark freshly shorn wool, distribute mineral salt on the flat stone the animals recognized. The sack was opened at 4:11 a.m. The salt began to fall. The gesture did not finish. The radio captured the impact of the sack against rock and a short scrape of a boot. Nothing else. When the patrol arrived, the salt was still gathering on the ground beneath the tilted sack. His footprints advanced toward a smooth black stone that appeared on no map, in no aerial photograph from 6 months earlier, in no memory of any local shepherd. The final footprint pressed fully into the snow. The surrounding surface was untouched. No additional marks. No hole. No lateral trail. The staff remained upright beside the stone. A strand of wool marked that morning trembled against the polished surface without any wind. The tracker on his belt transmitted a fixed coordinate. The herd held a rigid arc without advancing. The point returned no sound, no heat, no coherent shadow. The place held an absent man exactly where the world insisted he still was. At 5:02 a.m., the initial perimeter was set with metal stakes and isolation tape driven into the frozen slope soil, precisely at the limit where Efrain Quispe's footprints advanced and stopped. Daylight had fully taken the plateau. The sky was clear in the extreme altitude blue. Wind rushed over the ridgelines and died abruptly in the shallow depression where the smooth black stone remained. The contrast was immediate. Outside the zone, light snow shifted under gusts. Inside, the air remained still, as if the lower layer had greater density than the surroundings. Mineral salt continued to spill from the tilted sack, forming a small, granular mound where there should have been hands and movement. The interrupted routine remained readable on the ground. The usual flat stone for salt distribution stood 2 yards away, partially dusted with scattered crystals the herd had not touched. The wool-marking knife lay in the dry grass, blade still carrying blue dye from that morning's work. The staff remained upright beside the black stone that had not existed the day before. The last footprint pressed fully into the thin snow. Its edges were intact. The crystals around it were unbroken beyond the weight applied. The foot had been there. The rest had not. Sergeant Irusta approached within 20 inches of the mold and stopped. The air changed before contact. His glove stiffened under pressure from something that wasn't there. He did not touch. He stepped back 2 inches. The pressure ceased. He moved forward 1 inch. The pressure returned. Exact point. Resistance without matter. Verbally recorded. The anemometer confirmed it. Normal airflow at 6 feet, 0 at 8 inches above ground, inside the zone of the mold and the stone. Stratified air in open terrain without visible barrier. The smooth black stone showed a surface too polished for erosion and edges too defined for natural deposition. No lichen, no fissure, no fracture. A geological hammer struck the face 3 times. The sound did not open. It did not reverberate. It died short, absorbed. A portable spectrometer placed against the surface returned no classifiable mineral signature. Stable noise. No spectrum. The instrument was rebooted. Same result. The rock remained visible and materially undetectable. The blue strand of wool clinging to the surface vibrated at a constant frequency, despite the absence of wind in the lower air layer. An optical sensor registered stable micro-displacement. The fiber's contact point with the rock showed no friction, no flex. The wool did not detach. It did not tear. It did not respond to a metal pinch. Attachment without mechanism. Matteo Llerena, a neighboring shepherd who had known Ephraim since they were boys working the same altitude band, stood behind the line in silence. "He never let salt spill," he said quietly, referring to the tilted sack still shedding grains. The comment was logged as confirmation of routine interrupted. The herd held a rigid semicircle 40 feet out, heads low, eyes fixed on the center. None licked the scattered salt. None crossed the invisible boundary of dense air. Pupils dilated. Breathing shallow. The field veterinarian noted. Fixed threat posture without detectable predator stimulus. At 5:41 a.m., Ephraim's tracker, still clipped to the fallen belt in the grass, transmitted continuously. Fixed coordinate, fixed altitude, 0 movement. The precision radius contracted gradually without real displacement, as if the point were attempting to occupy less space. Satellite stability confirmed. The device asserted presence in the only place the body was not. Irusta ordered total silence for 60 seconds. No speech, no radio, no steps. The valley remained mute. No rock echo, no thermal crack. The wind, audible on the ridges, did not penetrate the depression. The center returned no sound. The sergeant marked the location as a sensory non-return zone. At 6:03 a.m., the first thermal test confirmed a cold well, coinciding with the stone and the final footprint. Temperature lower than adjacent snow. No gradient. The cold contour followed the edge of the footprint with absolute precision. The operator swept the sensor in an arc. The cold remained fixed regardless of angle. It did not emanate from the surface. It occupied the point. Mateo requested permission to approach the line. Granted. He stood 3 feet from the last footprint and did not advance. "He was here," he said, pointing at the mold. The statement was logged as human identification of trace. He stepped back without touching. The herd did not move. At 6:17 a.m., the perimeter radio captured a short fragment without carrier signal. Timbre consistent with Ephraim. No directional origin. The sound occupied the air above the stone and ceased. The recorder captured it. The directional microphone measured no pressure variation. Voice without wave. Irusta maintained the perimeter. Daylight remained full. The salt continued to spill. The knife remained fallen. The staff remained upright. The wool continued vibrating. The footprint remained rigid. The stone remained unreadable. The tracker continued asserting presence. The place continued holding an absent man exactly where his routine had been interrupted. At 6:28 a.m., the geological team from Huancar arrived at the perimeter with a portable spectrometry station, a LiDAR scanner, and a surface mapping drone, all calibrated outside the zone to establish baseline readings. The shallow depression where the smooth black stone stood had long been known to shepherds as a salt and rest point, long before the mineral border route existed. No oral record, map, or satellite image referenced any rock at that exact location. The stone had no geological process, no fall trajectory, no erosion, no deposition. It existed only from the moment Ephraim's routine was interrupted. The XRF spectrometer was pressed against the polished surface. First reading, no classifiable mineral signature. Reboot. Second reading, stable noise. No dominant element, no coherent matrix. Logged. Material unidentifiable by portable XRF. The geological hammer struck again. The sound died short, without internal resonance, as if absorbed by a structure without measurable volume. The rock remained visible and instrumentally non-existent. The LiDAR began constructing a three-dimensional mesh of the exterior contour. The shape of the stone appeared with millimeter precision in the model. When the scanner attempted depth reading, the beam entered the surface and returned no internal echo. The resulting model showed a perfect geometric cavity beneath the visible shell, as if the rock possessed exterior form without detectable interior. The operator repeated from 3 angles. The void persisted. The final footprint exhibited identical behavior. External contour present, no measurable depth beyond the superficial mold. Form without volume. At 6:44 a.m., the drone lifted for simultaneous thermal and visual sweep. Outside the zone, full stability. Upon crossing the lower rigid air layer above the final footprint, altitude oscillated despite 0 detectable gust. The log registered local interference not attributable to wind or regional magnetic variation. Thermal imaging confirmed the cold well aligned with the stone and the mold. No lateral diffusion. The cold occupied the point like a fixed presence. The herd had widened its semicircle to nearly 50 feet, still refusing to break visual alignment. No animal approached the salt. The field veterinarian logged persistent spatial aversion without detectable olfactory trigger. Mateo stood silent, hands rigid. He had already marked 8 lambs today, he said, glancing at the blue-dyed knife in the grass. Logged, confirmation of routine activity minutes before event. At 7:02 a.m., Irusta ordered an indirect reflection test. An inspection mirror was positioned at the base of the stone, angle calculated to return the surface. The surrounding terrain reflected correctly. Where the stone should have appeared in the mirror, there was only darkening. No contour, no coherent image. Angle adjusted. The void remained. The stone was visible directly, invisible by reflection. Logged. Absence of indirect optical response. The blue strand of wool continued vibrating at a constant 8.2 Hz. Sensor confirmed absolute invariance since arrival. Wind remained measurable above 12 inches. 0 within the lower layer. The staff stood perfectly vertical within that still stratum. At 7:19 a.m., Ephraim's tracker displayed further compression of its precision radius without physical displacement. Error circle reduced from 8 inches to 2. Clear sky. Stable satellites. The device asserted presence with increasing certainty in the only place the body was not. Irusta advanced a carbon fiber rod toward the mapped resistance boundary. "5 centimeters from the mold, the rod encountered distributed counterforce, bowing slightly without visible contact. Tension reading matched compression against rigid surface. Retraction. Tension 0. Advance. Tension returned at exact same coordinate. Stable spatial resistance." The sergeant marked the contour with additional stakes. At 7:41 a.m., as the sun shifted laterally and shadows lengthened across the terrain, the smooth black stone cast none. The rod's shadow vanished when crossing the zone and reappeared beyond it. An opaque card repeated the effect. No continuous shadow within the mold and stone area. Light found no obstruction there. Logged. Persistent failure of direct optical projection. The drone, now grounded outside the zone, displayed a spontaneous thermal frame not recorded live. A partial human outline, aligned precisely over the final footprint. Heat negative up to knee height. The operator extracted the frame. Integrity verified. No artifact detected. The shape coincided millimeter perfect with the footprint mold and LiDAR cavity. Form without heat where no volume existed. Matteo saw the projection and did not step forward. He was standing when the salt fell, he said, observing the alignment between the outline and the tilted sack. Logged. Behavioral inference based on routine posture. The herd stepped back in collective motion, maintaining arc. At 8:03 a.m. The perimeter radio captured another fragment without carrier. "Here." Voice consistent with Ephraim. No directional source. The sound occupied the air above the stone and ceased. The directional microphone registered no pressure change. The powered-off recorder captured it. Voice without wave. Irusta maintained the perimeter and marked the center as active emission point without origin. The stone remained unreadable. The footprint remained depthless. The air remained rigid. The wool continued vibrating. The staff remained upright. The tracker continued asserting compressed presence. Ephraim's routine remained interrupted in the only place where everything insisted he still was. At 8:17 a.m., the anomalous thermal frame extracted from the drone was projected again, this time overlaid in real time onto the LiDAR model of the stone's hollow contour and the final footprint. The alignment was absolute. Where the LiDAR returned no volume, the thermal imaging suggested a heat-negative human form, rising from the footprint up to the knee. The operator froze the image and adjusted contrast. No gradient, no thermal edge, no dissipation. Presence without temperature. Body without heat. Irusta marked the point as triple instrument correspondence. Spectral absence, volumetric absence, positive heat absence. The perimeter remained closed. Wind still moved along the ridgelines and died in the depression. The salt continued to gather beneath the tilted sack. The marking knife remained in the grass. The staff stood perfectly upright inside the immobile air layer. The interrupted routine persisted intact around the center. At 8:33 a.m., the team attempted indirect contact with the mold. A calibrated rod advanced slowly toward the edge of the final footprint without touching the snow. 5 centimeters out, the known spatial resistance bowed the shaft. Tension rose to a value equivalent to pressure against rigid surface. The operator held. The rod advanced no further. Under thermal imaging, the negative human outline reappeared up to the thigh, aligned with the pressure point. When the rod withdrew, the shape vanished instantly. The mold remained rigid. Resistance correlated with thermal presence. Matteo watched from the line. He was facing the herd, he said, pointing at the alignment between the outline and the arc of animals. Logged, inference based on habitual posture during salt distribution. The herd, now 50 feet away, held fixed gaze. No bleeding, no advance. At 8:49 a.m., Irusta removed his right glove and extended his bare hand to within 4 inches of the mold. His skin reacted before contact. Hair rose without wind. Pressure built against his palm from nothing visible. He stopped. Advanced 1 millimeter. Pressure intensified. Retreated 2. Pressure ceased. Exact resistance boundary marked. Logged. Field resistant to human skin perception. At 9:02 a.m., thermal imaging captured new vertical expansion of the outline up to the abdomen, still negative to heat. Still aligned with the final footprint. Growth strictly vertical, no lateral displacement. The point continued holding the man where the ground insisted. The perimeter radio powered off, emitted for a fraction of a second. I see. Voice consistent with Ephraim, no carrier, no measurable wave. The inert recorder captured it. The active microphone detected nothing. Voice without pressure. Origin, air above the stone. Matteo stepped back half a pace. The herd retreated 1 full collective step, maintaining arc. The veterinarian logged increased distance under anomalous vocal stimulus. At 9:17 a.m., the shadow test was repeated using artificial lateral light. The surrounding terrain cast defined contours. Upon crossing the boundary of the final footprint, the rod's shadow disappeared, then reappeared beyond it. The stone continued casting none. The opaque card repeated the discontinuity. Persistent failure of direct light obstruction. The blue strand of wool continued vibrating at 8.2 Hz sensor, confirmed invariance. The contact point showed no friction, no slip. The vibration correlated temporally with each thermal reappearance of the outline. Correlation logged. At 9:34 a.m., Irusta authorized closer approach. He stepped to within 20 inches of the mold. The rigid air layer tensioned his pant leg without wind. His gloved hand advanced to the marked limit. The glove deformed inward, compressed by invisible surface aligned with the thermal abdomen contour. He held position. The monitor showed partial overlay. Glove intersecting heat-negative absence without material contact. Stable resistance. Irusta spoke quietly without transmission. Ephraim Quispe, respond. The words crossed the valley and died at the center. 5 seconds. 10. Then, in the air above the stone. Here. 2 full phonemes. No echo. No measurable wave. The thermal outline pulsed upward to chest level for 2 frames. The rod outside registered no change. The glove maintained pressure. The voice ceased. At 9:46 a.m., the tracker displayed maximum compression. Point without measurable radius. Coordinate present without extension. Device integrity confirmed. The unit asserted absolute presence at an impossible position. The herd stepped back again. The arc widened to 60 feet. No animal broke gaze. The salt remained untouched. The knife remained fallen. The staff remained upright. The wool vibrated. The footprint remained rigid. The stone remained unreadable. The form remained incomplete. At 9:58 a.m., the inactive radio emitted again. Mateo. The neighboring shepherd's name, never transmitted on site. Mateo froze. Fine tremor recorded. Irusta kept his hand against the invisible resistance. The thermal form rose 1 centimeter. The mold did not yield. The air did not open. The place continued holding the man without return. At 10:06 a.m., the telecom team positioned 3 directional antennas in a triangle around the center of non-return, each calibrated outside the zone for baseline reading. Regional frequencies were clear. No civilian or military traffic. Sky perfectly open. When oriented toward the smooth black stone and the final footprint, all 3 antennas lost phase simultaneously. No directional return. No measurable intensity. No residual noise. The space above the mold absorbed reception and transmission. Irusta ordered an active test. The operator transmitted the full name, Efrain Quispe. The voice carried clearly across the valley, echoed from the slopes, returned coherent, except at the center. Over the stone, the echo fractured and died. The air there did not accept acoustic reflection. Logged, localized failure of sound return. The interrupted routine remained intact around it. Salt continued accumulating under the tilted sack. The usual flat stone stood untouched 2 yards away. The marking knife lay in the grass. The staff held vertical inside the immobile air layer. The herd, now 65 feet out, maintained rigid arc and fixed gaze. No animal approached the salt. At 10:18 a.m., the perimeter radio, powered off, battery removed, emitted for 1 second. Here, Ephraim's unmistakable timbre. No open channel, no carrier, no pressure wave detected. The dead recorder captured it. The live microphone measured nothing. Voice without measurable acoustic support. Origin, air above the stone. Mateo stepped back 2 more paces. The herd retreated in unified motion. The veterinarian logged, contained panic with maintained fixation. Thermal imaging reacted simultaneously. The negative human outline rose to full chest level, still without head, still aligned with the last footprint. The operator froze the frame. Overlay confirmed continuous vertical expansion across hours. The point held the man on the same axis the mold asserted. At 10:27 a.m., Irusta advanced again to 20 inches from the boundary. His gloved hand entered the mapped pressure field. The glove compressed inward, as if meeting invisible surface aligned with the heat-negative torso. He held position. The monitor showed partial overlay. Glove inside absence without registering material contact. Resistance remained constant. Ephraim, he said quietly. The word crossed the valley and died at the center. 5 seconds, 10. The air stayed rigid. Wind moved on the ridges, not below. The wool vibrated at 8.2 hertz. The staff did not tilt. The salt did not shift. The mold did not give. At 10:31 a.m., the response came. Irusta. The sergeant's name, never spoken over open channel. The sound did not travel through air. It occupied the space above the stone and ended. Thermal imaging registered a single pulse in the chest contour. The herd stepped back again. Mateo dropped to his knees without sound. Irusta did not withdraw. If you're here, respond. The sentence died in the center. 3 seconds later. Seeing. Same voice. No wave. The monitor showed 2 centimeters of vertical expansion. Growth correlated with emission. At 10:39 a.m., the tracker displayed extreme compression. Point without radius. Coordinate present without area. Integrity confirmed. The device asserted absolute presence at the only place the body was not. Shadow testing was repeated with artificial lateral light. The surrounding terrain cast sharp outlines. As Irusta's hand crossed the boundary, its shadow vanished, reappeared beyond it. The stone continued casting none. Light met no obstruction there. Logged, persistent absence of optical blocking. At 10:46 a.m., the dead radio emitted again. Mateo, the neighbor's name, never transmitted. Mateo lifted his head slowly, eyes locked on the center. Fine tremor recorded. The herd did not look away. The thermal outline expanded to neck level for 2 frames. Still no head. Still negative to heat. Still aligned. The mold remained rigid. The air maintained stable resistance against the sergeant's glove. The point continued holding the man without release. At 10:52 a.m., the voice came clearer than before. Here. 2 complete syllables. No echo. No direction. The monitor registered sudden expansion to the base of the skull for a single frame. The first, near-complete body contour. The next frame dissolved the top again. Sequence frozen. Persistence, 0. Irusta did not retreat. His hand remained pressed against invisible pressure. Efrain Quispe, he said quietly. The words died in the center. The air remained solid. The valley remained suspended around the absence. At 11:03 a.m., the temperature dropped 3 degrees in less than 4 minutes, only inside the perimeter of the non-return center. The surrounding terrain maintained normal altitude gradient. On the thermal monitor, the cold well aligned with the smooth black stone, and the final footprint widened silently, extending now into the grass beneath the upright staff. The wood did not react. The blue strand of wool continued vibrating at 8.2 hertz. The air 8 inches above ground remained still, resistant. The tracker in the grass reduced its precision radius to near 0, a point without area, as if the coordinate were attempting to occupy nothing. The interrupted routine remained exposed as physical evidence. The salt sack stayed open and tilted. The grains, once forming a mound, now slid in minimal flow, as if the weight of the sack were frozen mid-gesture. The marking knife lay 2 yards away. The herd refused the salt. Mateo knelt behind the line, eyes locked on the center, jaw clenched. At 11:11 a.m., the thermal outline reignited up to shoulder height, perfectly aligned with the last footprint. For the first time, there was suggestion of a head, faint contour, incomplete, dissolving immediately. Frame frozen. Next frame, gone. The form did not move, did not step, did not shift. It insisted on the same axis the ground affirmed. Irusta authorized final approach at 11:16 a.m. And he crossed the line alone and stopped 20 inches from the mold. His pant leg tightened as it entered the rigid air layer, compressed by space without contact. His gloved hand advanced to the mapped resistance boundary. The glove bent inward, pressed by invisible surface aligned with the thermal torso. He did not touch matter. He touched resistance. He held. At 11:19 a.m., the voice emerged fully for half a second. Irusta. No echo. No wave. Occupying the air above the stone. The directional microphone measured no pressure variation. The powered-off recorder captured it. voice without detectable physical carrier. The herd stepped back in unison. Wind along the ridges ceased for 3 seconds. The anemometer read 0 at all heights. Local suspension. Irusta spoke softly. Efrain Quispe, respond. The sentence traveled the valley and died at the center. 5 seconds. 10. The wool maintained 8.2 hertz. The staff did not tilt. The salt did not shift. The mold did not yield. At 11:22 a.m., the response came. Here. No echo. No wave. The thermal monitor pulsed, and for a single frame displayed the complete body, from footprint to head. Heat negative, aligned, edges faint, persistence minimal. The next frame dissolved the upper half again. At that exact moment, the tracker went dark without powering down, screen active, no coordinate, no error, no position. The technician shook it. Nothing. The device retained energy and lost location. The coordinates ceased to exist. Pressure in Irusta's glove shifted. Not stronger, not weaker. 2 millimeters inward toward the mold. The fabric pulled slightly at his knuckles, as if drawn. He followed instinctively 1 millimeter. On screen, the thermal contour shifted the same distance. The point yielded without opening. At 11:25 a.m., the staff tilted 2 degrees and returned upright. The wool vibrated with slightly greater amplitude for 2 seconds, then returned to 8.2 hertz. Wind resumed along the ridges. The lower air layer remained immobile. The herd retreated again, now over 90 feet away, still staring. Mateo tried to speak. No sound emerged. Fine tremor. Irusta kept his hand where resistance had shifted. I am, he said quietly. The word died at the center. At 11:27 a.m., the pressure ceased instantly. The air relaxed. The thermal outline vanished. The cold well shrank back to the original diameter of the mold. The tracker lit again and displayed normal coordinates with standard radius, as if the point had been returned to the map. The staff stood still. The wool continued at 8.2 hertz. The salt resumed its minimal fall from the tilted sack. Irusta withdrew his hand and stepped back without crossing the mold. The final footprint remained rigid. The stone remained spectrally unreadable and volumetrically hollow. The shadow continued to fail at the center. The voice ceased. The form did not return. The place closed over what it did not release. Efrain Quispe remained non-existent exactly where his routine had been interrupted, as if the valley sustained an absent man by physical imposition. If you made it this far, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because accounts like this do not remain visible for long without being erased by the very logic they fracture. Leave a like and tell me in the comments which city you're watching from. While the world still answers when you call a name and expect it to come back,